Chapter 30:27. A bunch of scammers. The large black dog was so angry that he wanted to bite someone. Although he was two-faced and despicable, it seemed that this old ginseng and rabbit were not much inferior to him. Fuck off. He kicked out and sent the stone man flying. Fortunately, he didn't use any force. Otherwise, the stone man would definitely be a stone now. Grandpa Dog, you're so smart. That kick was so cool. The rabbit hugged one of the large black dog's legs and rubbed it. Go away, don't dirty Grandpa Dog. Let little ginseng hug him. The old ginseng squeezed over. Fuck off. Fuck off. These two scammers disliked each other, pushing and shoving each other. It was very lively. The stone man had already run back. He had been bullied by the large black dog, so he could only lie at Ling Han's feet and act like a puppy. Ling Han shook his head. These three were really scammers. Little Qing was still the best. She spread her wings and soared in the sky, and didn't want to be associated with these three scammers. Hee. Chun Ruijing, Jiang Yefeng, and the other disciples all laughed. Of his 8 disciples, only Fu Tianqing wasn't here. Because his cultivation level was too high, Ling Han didn't want him to scare people. Stop. At this moment they were finally blocked by someone. State your name. A celestial king appeared in front of them. Although there was only a streak of light wrapped around his body, a celestial king was a celestial king. He could be called an overlord anywhere. Now a celestial king was actually a guard. How extravagant. On second thought, this was the training ground of a 7th-step supremacy. Naturally, it wasn't strange for a celestial king to be a guard. We're here to challenge you. The rabbit immediately jumped out. It really did jump out, and its ears were still bouncing. What was going on? The celestial king was stunned. A rabbit had actually run out to challenge him? Ha ha ha. He laughed loudly. This was the training ground of a 7th-step supremacy, and a mere first heaven actually dared to challenge him? What a joke. This wasn't just overestimating one's capabilities, it was stupid. What are you laughing at? The old ginseng charged over, his roots waving as he spat at the celestial king. This is Grandpa Ginseng's precious liquid. Good son, I'll reward you. Ling Han was speechless. Even though he had become a celestial king, the old ginseng was still so immoral. Forget about the fact that this was just spit. Even if it really was precious liquid, there was no way that a mortal king would accept it. This wasn't bestowed, but rather spat out, carrying powerful humiliation. That immortal king hurriedly dodged. Facing such an attack, he truly couldn't even block it. Seeing this, the old ginseng naturally became more and more delighted. Poo piu piu. His saliva continued to spit out, transforming into a torrential downpour that sprayed toward that celestial king. That immortal king hurriedly activated a defensive light shield, blocking all the saliva. However, the old ginseng's saliva was not as simple as being disgusting. Rather, it was extremely corrosive, and rapidly corroded the light shield. This caused the celestial king's expression to turn pale with fright. He hadn't expected that the old ginseng wasn't just immoral. Instead, he was actually quite capable. He had no choice but to be cautious, and he drew out boundless regulations to clash with the old ginseng. The old ginseng howled loudly, and continued to unleash attacks. He was completely unrestrained, and would use all sorts of underhanded moves. His saliva spat up 3 directions, while his roots attacked 3 directions below. He was truly wretched and immoral. Battling with this kind of existence was undoubtedly a very exhausting matter. That celestial king very quickly roared in rage, and the veins on his face bulged. You're so ugly, yet you still come out to make a spectacle of yourself. Don't you find it embarrassing? Even Grandpa Ginseng feels embarrassed for your mother. The old ginseng was deeply influenced by the large black dog. Battles weren't just a battle of strength, and he naturally couldn't neglect his verbal skills either. Let Grandpa Ginseng use my precious liquid to wash your face and beautify your face. That celestial king was so angry that he was about to spit blood. He was enraged, and he grabbed the regulations of heaven and earth, combining them with his own power to form a heavenly dagger that slashed toward the old ginseng. You unfilial son. You actually dare to attack Grandpa Ginseng. The old ginseng jumped up and down. Grandpa Ginseng has given you plastic surgery, So I'm like a second parent to you. You unfilial son. You actually dare to kill your own kin? How disgraceful. Grandpa Ginseng doesn't recognize you as his son. That celestial king was so furious that his eyes were almost spitting fire. He roared loudly, and his attacks were as quick as lightning. However, in his rage, though his attacks were domineering, they lost their flexibility. If the old ginseng's cultivation level was lower than his, then he would be able to rely on these thunderous attacks to obtain victory. However, the strength of the two of them was about the same, so this kind of attack couldn't give him the upper hand. Instead, if he was too strong, he would easily break, and he would reveal too many openings. The old ginseng had said so much because he wanted to disturb his opponent and force him to reveal openings. Now, he naturally wouldn't miss this opportunity. He grabbed hold of his opponent's weak point and launched a barrage of attacks. Xiao xiao xiao. Numerous figures leaped out from the dojo and landed. All of them were celestial kings. However, they didn't attack. Instead, they crossed their arms and watched coldly from the side. If they couldn't even defeat trash like the old ginseng, how could they still have the face to remain in the mountain-crushing dojo? Of course, if that celestial king was defeated, the others would also attack and defeat the old ginseng, and then kill him to uphold the name of the dojo. This was a holy land, and no one could blaspheme the dignity of the mountain-crushing dojo. After another several hundred moves, that celestial king was finally defeated. A blow landed on his chest, and he continuously vomited blood. Sigh, being invincible is so lonely, the old ginseng said in an intense show of pretentiousness. Right now, he was very much like a human. A few of his roots were tied together, forming a pair of legs and arms. Now his two arms were behind his back, and he shook his head. However, no one was echoing him, and this made him feel incredibly awkward. Hey, why isn't anyone clapping? He called out. Clap, clap, clap. In any case, the large black dog and rabbit were just here to watch the show, and they didn't mind the matter getting out of hand. The old ginseng became smug again. He puffed out his chest and belly, and there was a proud expression on his face. Scram, scram, scram. You can't even withstand a single blow. He waved his hand at that celestial king. That celestial king's expression was livid. Just as he was about to charge forward and fight again, he was sent flying with a kick. This was a third heaven celestial king. He coldly said, "How humiliating. You can't even defeat a mutant." What? Brat, is your mouth growing on your anus? The old ginseng stomped his foot. Do you know how to speak human language? Who's a freak? You're the freak. Your face is full of freaks. The third firmament immortal king was taken aback. Then, a look of rage appeared on his face. Fuck, he only said one sentence, and it was also the truth. You immortal medicine took form, pa. You didn't take form either, only having a bit of a human form. If you aren't a different species, then what are you? What a despicable mouth, he said coldly. Then he struck out with his palm towards the old ginseng. The old ginseng could not withstand a third firmament immortal monarch's attack. Save me. My son is trying to kill me. The old ginseng hurriedly broke into a run, running towards Ling Han. The third firmament immortal king was infuriated. Lowly ginseng, did you soak your mouth in a cesspit? He roared furiously, and condensed regulations into a sword, which he thrust toward the old ginseng. End of this chapter. Chapter 30-29. The fourth firmament immortal king's face turned livid. Only a blind man would dare to impersonate an old ginseng. However, his surname was indeed Dang, and his given name was Shun. In front of everyone, how could he change his surname and name? How could he lose face like this? Unfortunately, he actually collided with this cheap ginseng. Don't fall into my hands. Otherwise, I'll definitely stew you, he said viciously to the old ginseng. The old ginseng stretched out a few of his roots and made a disdainful expression. Eat shit. Ling Han was also speechless. At his level, there was actually such a farce. But it didn't matter. They were here to cause trouble anyway, so they could do whatever they wanted. He turned to the large black dog and said, "Another one has been led astray by you." Hey! The large black dog jumped up, pointed at Ling Han, and said, "Little Han, don't slander Grandpa Dog. That old ginseng is clearly a swindler, and he's incomparably evil. Does he still need Lord Dog to lead him astray? Ling Han sighed. Even the large black dog was busy distancing himself from the old ginseng. It was clear to what extent the old ginseng was angering both men and gods. Dang Shen made his move. He was filled with rage, and he wanted to defeat Kong Xiao Yuan. Then he would drag the old ginseng out and use the cruelest torture methods in the world to torture him. Finally, he would make soup out of him and drink it. Brother Dang, put in a bit more effort. You must obtain this lowly ginseng. For the glory of our dojo. Fuck, this ginseng demon is too despicable. The celestial kings in the dojo were all enraged. The despicable old ginseng had successfully provoked everyone's fury. There was no lack of ninth heaven celestial kings here. All of them released their auras, causing the old ginseng's skin to feel as if it was being cut by blades. It was afraid, and it hurriedly retreated. Then it grabbed onto one of the large black dog's legs. Only then did it become arrogant again. What are you shouting for? If you have the guts, then fight with my grandpa dog. The large black dog hurriedly flicked his leg. Scram! Scram! Don't cling onto grandpa dog's noble thigh. No, Lord Dog, your thighs are too thick. Let me hug you for a while longer, said the old ginseng shamelessly. This caused everyone to be dumbfounded. How could there be such a despicable existence? This was simply too despicable. Dang Kin launched a flurry of attacks at Kong Xiao Yuan. Kong Xiao Yuan also walked the path of alchemy. He flicked his index finger, and a crimson pill shot forth. A violent power shook the pill, and it immediately exploded. Of course, Dang Kin would not repeat the same mistake. He was already prepared, so he immediately flew up and avoided the explosion zone. However, the pill did not create a black hole. Instead, it created a huge swamp, which immediately slowed Dang Shen down. The laws had turned into visible threads that tied up the Dang Shen. Kong Xiao Yuan's attack did not affect him in the slightest, so he naturally had the upper hand. Ling Han nodded. Although his two disciples did not have much talent in martial art, they were quite accomplished in alchemy. There was no need to talk about Chen Ruijing's black hole pill. Kong Xiao Yuan's mud pill was also very useful. Both of them had integrated regulations into their pills and walked their own unique paths. Of course, both of them had asked for guidance from Ling Han, and they had received crucial guidance. However, this was still praiseworthy. Everyone could clearly see that Kong Xiao Yuan's battle prowess was not very high. In fact, he could only be ranked below average among those at the same cultivation level. However, who asked Dang Kin to be so weak? After withstanding a few dozen blows, Dang Kin was completely defeated. Then, he was pointed at by the old ginseng to show off. Who else? The old ginseng wore an arrogant expression. Bring it on. If Grandpa Ginseng says I'm afraid, then I'll be your father. I won't be your grandfather anymore. Fuck. Everyone was enraged by his words, and they wanted nothing more than to rush up and hack the old ginseng into pieces. What? You're not convinced? So what? The old ginseng became more and more arrogant. He pointed at everyone and said, It's not that Grandpa Ginseng is looking down on you, but you're all just a bunch of trash. Boom. The celestial kings were all enraged, and their anger became tangible. The large black dog smirked and suddenly kicked out. Pa! The old ginseng was flung away by him, and he landed in front of the celestial kings. The old ginseng crawled to his feet, and when he raised his head, he saw the celestial king's furious expressions. He instantly squeezed out a flattering smile, and suddenly jumped up. He pointed at Ling Han and the others. Bark! You scum! You actually dared to threaten Grandpa Ginseng, and speak ill of these lords behind me. Now that I've obtained my freedom, I won't have to be threatened by you anymore. The old ginseng turned around again, and bowed to the celestial kings. Sirs, little ginseng pays his respects to you. Everyone was dumbfounded. How could there be such a shameless guy? I'm going to kill him. A celestial king couldn't help but throw a punch at the old ginseng. Save me. The old ginseng hurriedly tunneled into the ground. Before he had obtained his power, he was already skilled at escaping. Now that he had advanced to the celestial king tier, his battle prowess was still not that great, and he was at the bottom of the first heaven. However, his ability to escape had improved greatly, And he was extraordinary. He burrowed into the ground, and when he came out again, he was already beside Ling Han. Come at me. The old ginseng started to jump again. Bastard. At least a dozen celestial kings dashed out at the same time. I'll do it. Yun Yong Wang jumped out and swept out a palm at those celestial kings. Pung pung pung. The power of his palm was incredibly thick, and a single strike sent those celestial kings flying. So powerful! A celestial king exclaimed in shock. They were all at the fifth heaven, but Yun Yong Wang was unbelievably powerful. Among the dozen or so celestial kings, at least 4 were also at the fifth heaven. However, even though so many of them had joined forces, they were still no match for him. This group of people was very powerful, and all of them possessed the power to crush those at the same cultivation level. No wonder they dared to come and challenge the celestial king. However, so what if they were powerful? This was the Paragon Dao ground. If they really provoked the celestial venerable Sundermount, no matter how many people came, and no matter who they were, they would all die. Yun Yong Wang was filled with heroic spirit, and he waved his hand. I am Yun Yong Wang, please enlighten me. He had cultivated the 9 transformations heaven scroll, and the indestructible heaven scroll, and he had mastered both offense and defense. Thus he was naturally extremely powerful. In the past, Ling Han had been unable to teach them the celestial venerable tier treasure technique. Now however it was a piece of cake. Added with the fact that so much time had passed, disciples like Yin Yong Wang and Jiang Yufeng, who were proficient in martial art, had naturally mastered it. He roared and took the initiative to attack. Pung pung pung. A faint golden light radiated from his body, and it was as if he had an invincible body. Moreover, he channeled the 9 transformations heaven scroll, causing his power to explosively increase by over 100 times. This power had far surpassed the level of the fifth heaven. Numerous figures flew into the air. None of them were a match for him, and even celestial kings at the same cultivation level could only be sent flying by a single strike from him. However, after a few breaths, there was no one left standing in front of Yin Yong Wang. He clasped his hands in greeting and said, "Thank you for letting me win." A 7th heaven celestial king walked out and said, "At least you have some ability. No wonder you dared to come and create trouble. However, you mustn't forget that this is Lord Sundermount's Dao ground. Then let me, Lan Ruoping, deal with you." G-Cup female idol takes first place in AV video. Please follow the WeChat public account AI222. Chapter 30:30. Jiang Yufeng chuckled, pointed at himself and said, "It's my turn now, right?" He was extremely flashy and applauded. Everyone, let's welcome the most handsome man in history with a warm round of applause." You don't seem very happy." Jiang Yufeng looked at Lan Ruoping. "Sigh, seeing such a handsome man. You actually don't feel the slightest bit stunned. How disappointing." Lan Ruoping looked at him coldly and said, "Cut the crap, make your move." He was very conceited. He clearly knew that Yin Yong Wang and the others had the ability to crush those of the same cultivation level. But he was still full of confidence in himself. "Sigh, you're really crude," Jiang Yufeng said with a smile. He shook his head and said, "How about we sit down, drink some tea and chat?" Lan Ruoping was startled. He didn't think that not only the ginseng demon and dog demon had such cheap mouths, but this human was also like this. He charged over. "Die! Hong!" He drew out an ancient mirror that hovered above his head, spitting out a terrifying light. Jiang Yufeng was unafraid and charged over. Pung pung pung. The two of them exchanged blows, both using their full strength. Lan Ruoping was so conceited, but he indeed had real talent. His battle prowess was incredibly shocking, possibly reaching the height of 8th heaven. This was because his talent in martial art was too high, allowing his battle prowess to almost cross over a heaven. Jiang Yufeng was different. At first, he might not even reach the heavenly body tier, but now he had reached 7th heaven. His potential had long since been used up, and it was only because of Ling Han that he was able to break through his limits again and again. But he cultivated the indestructible heaven scroll and the 9 transformations heaven scroll, so whether it was battle prowess or defense, he was far superior to those of the same cultivation level. Thus, His battle prowess was completely not inferior to Lan Ruoping's. However, Jiang Yufeng still had the advantage in defense. His body was like indestructible Vajra, and was not something that Lan Ruoping could break through. This allowed Jiang Yufeng to stand in an invincible position. He could go all out, and only needed to focus on attacking. The more Lan Ruoping fought, the more aggrieved he became. He was clearly more outstanding than Jiang Yufeng, but because the latter had cultivated some kind of secret technique, his battle prowess was magnified by 100 times, enough to contend with him. Furthermore, under the protection of another secret technique, Jiang Yufeng's defense was close to invincible. Even after a dozen or so strikes, he could only leave a small wound on his opponent's body. How could he seriously injure his opponent like this? Such a battle was too unfair. He was filled with hatred. The other party definitely had a formidable master to receive such a wondrous technique. Therefore, he was very unwilling. But so what? No matter how unwilling he was, he wouldn't be able to increase his combat strength. He would only be affected by his emotions, causing his combat strength to weaken. The scales of victory continued to tilt in Jiang Yufeng's favor. It was only a matter of time before Lan Ruoping was defeated. Indeed, after another few hundred moves, Lan Ruoping was struck by Jiang Yufeng's fist. He vomited blood repeatedly and was defeated. Previously, he had made such a bold statement, but now he had been defeated by Jiang Yufeng at the same cultivation level. Naturally, he could not bring himself to lose face, so he immediately turned and left, not returning to the training hall. She just didn't know if he was just putting on an act, or if he would never come back. Jiang Yufeng giggled and bowed to the crowd. "Thank you for letting me win. Thank you for letting me win. As expected, I'm still the most handsome. I make others feel ashamed of their inferiority and leave in shame. You guys are really bold," a ninth firmament celestial king said. He looked extremely young, and his flame of life was at most tens of billions of years old. Yet, he had already entered the ninth firmament. His progress could be said to be flying. "You must have gone mad from wanting to become famous. You even dare to cause trouble at Heavenly Venerable Poya's training hall." The young ninth firmament celestial king strode out. Boom. He clearly didn't use any power, but when he stomped down, the heavens and earth shook. It was as though the heavens were afraid of him. Ding Ping walked out and asked indifferently, "Who are you?" "I'm sure Yuan," said the ninth firmament celestial king. "My father is Heavenly Venerable Flawless. Heavenly Venerable Flawless." Ding Ping immediately recalled that Heavenly Venerable Flawless was a third-step expert. It was no wonder he could nurture such a young, ninth firmament celestial king. However, it was obvious that Shi Yuan couldn't become a Heavenly Venerable. Hence, he had come here in hopes that a seventh-step supremacy could help him take this crucial step. Only after becoming a Heavenly Venerable could one truly be ranked among the strongest in the world. "You guys should also be descendants of Heavenly Venerables, right?" Shi Yuan continued. His words instantly caused the nearby celestial kings to exclaim in unison. They were clearly very shocked. Most of the people here didn't have a Heavenly Venerable background. Hence, even a first-step expert was someone they had to look up to. They were merely apprentices of the training hall, and not Heavenly Venerable Poya's personal disciples. How could they dare to offend a Heavenly Venerable? "So what if I am, and so what if I'm not?" Ding Ping asked indifferently. "Haha, actually, it doesn't matter." Shi Yuan was still very arrogant. "It's just that I saw that you guys seem to have grasped a Heavenly Venerable technique, so I wanted to confirm it." He clenched his fists and lightly shook them. Instantly, dazzling light surged out. "In front of me, all your backgrounds are useless," he said proudly. "Then let's fight." Ding Ping was also burning with fighting spirit. In front of his master, he couldn't lose his morale no matter what. Boom! Shi Yuan charged over. He punched out, and the supreme laws wrapped around his fist. Below the level of laws, it was already peerless. Ding Ping wasn't afraid, and he also punched out. Bang bang bang, the two of them kept exchanging blows. They were both very confident in their own strength, and wanted to defeat each other head-on. "Master, seeing your brother Ding won't lose, right?" Juyao said from the side. The current battle situation was extremely intense, and he could not see who had the upper hand. "Don't worry. Little Ping Zi was born with brute strength, and he's even at the same cultivation level as him. Moreover, he's cultivated the indestructible Heaven Scroll, so he's most suited for head-on battles like this. What's you on now? He's just trying to show off. Lord Dog guarantees you that he won't be able to last more than 100 moves. Juyao nodded. The large black dog was a second-step celestial venerable, so how could he possibly be mistaken? Sure enough, in less than 80 moves, Shi Yuan retreated in a sorry state, her face flushed red. His arms hung down in a strange shape, because all the bones in his arms had been shattered. However, he had wanted to save face and forcefully condensed his broken bones with origin energy, thinking that Ding Ping was the same as him. Now he couldn't hold on any longer, and was immediately defeated. Ding Ping was very polite. He cupped his fists and said, "I admit it." The old ginseng jumped out and mocked. "Is there anyone who can fight? Is there anyone who can fight?" The celestial kings didn't say anything. Ding Ping was far too powerful, and those below the ninth heaven were naturally no match for him. Moreover, who could guarantee that they would be a match for elites at the ninth heaven? The old ginseng laughed loudly. "What bullshit, celestial venerable. You've taught a bunch of useless trash. Hurry up and tear down your reputation." G-Cup female idol takes first place in her first AV shoot. Please follow the WeChat public account Amy222 to watch online. Chapter 30-31. As the saying went, don't hit someone in the face. This signboard was the face of a training ground. If the signboard was smashed, would the drenched mountain training ground still be able to operate before they got their revenge? No one would be able to bring themselves to do that. Thus, the celestial kings were all enraged. Chen Ruijing and the others all looked towards Ling Han. Ling Han nodded and said, "Tear it down." There was no need to be polite towards the heavenly venerable drenched mountain. They could slap him in the face as much as they wanted, and the more displeased he was, the better. "Yes, master," the disciples all answered solemnly. They moved out and flew towards the training ground. "Stop!" the celestial kings all roared. If they really allowed someone to smash the signboard of the training ground, would they still have the face to continue living? Ning Haixing casually pressed down. How powerful was a first-step heavenly venerable? Under the pressure of her aura, all the celestial kings felt their chests tighten, and then they could no longer move. "Roar, Uncle Rabbit is coming!" The rabbit ran off at lightning speed. "Let's see who can take the signboard first." "Who's afraid of who?" The old ginseng burrowed into the ground. "Ayo, ayo, ayo!" The stone man coiled up and turned into a stone ball that rolled forward. Hung long long. Its body was too heavy, and it left a deep mark in the ground, which turned into a small river. Little Ching flew through the sky, also as fast as lightning. The large black dog scratched his neck with his paw. What a bunch of little kids. What's so fun about this? Just a moment ago, his face was filled with disdain, but as soon as he turned around, he immediately broke into a run. Grandpa Dog is first. Schwa. He was a second-step heavenly venerable, so he naturally arrived first even though he had started later. With a leap and a flash, he had already arrived below the training ground. He leaped up high, and with a bite, he had already bitten off the signboard. Grandpa Dog is mighty. Grandpa Dog is domineering. Grandpa Dog has big breasts. The rabbit, the old ginseng, and the stone man all shouted. "Breasts, your sister has big breasts. Do you know how to talk?" The large black dog kicked the stone man, and the stone man rolled back. The old ginseng took the signboard. This was a golden signboard, and the words "Drenched Mountain Training Ground" were written on it. It was very grand and majestic. "Grandpa Ginseng has the signboard. Whoever wants it can come at me," it said in a provocative voice. Although the celestial kings were furious, none of them could move. Under the suppression of the celestial venerable's aura, it would be strange if the celestial kings could still make a move. Not everyone was called Ling Han. The large black dog and the others carried the signboard back, all of them proud and arrogant. It was no wonder that he had been constantly suppressed by the 5 paragons, and the large black dog had even been captured and imprisoned for a very, very long time. As such, he had naturally been suppressing his anger. Ling Han smiled faintly. "The signboard is in my hands." I'll be at the plentiful arrival inn for the next few days. If you want to take it, feel free to come. He intentionally hid his identity, so the celestial kings could only hear this voice, but they had no idea who it was. Let's go. Ling Han turned around and led the way. Poyu wasn't here, so there was no point in continuing to cause trouble. In any case, the signboard had already been torn down. This was equivalent to slapping Poyu in the face. What kind of lousy dojo is this? There isn't even a single person who can fight. The old ginseng said deliberately. AI, being invincible is really lonely. Brats, come at me if you have the guts. The rock golem had also learned bad things now. Pa! It was immediately kicked in the face by the rabbit. Even if his physique was invincible and indestructible, he still needed his face and skin. Brat, just you wait. I will remember this enmity, and I will definitely repay you. He gritted his teeth. He definitely had to show his attitude, or even he would feel apologetic. Next time it won't be so easy, Ling Han said indifferently. After beating Empyrean Sundermount up a few times, he was in a great mood, and it seemed as if the barrier between realms had slightly loosened. Perhaps after beating up these 5 old thieves, he would be able to advance to the 6th step. At that time, he would be able to push his plane to a higher level, and his strength would explode by who knew how many times. The 7th step was still just trash. Old thief, you still have a few days to live. Enjoy your remaining time of freedom, because you will only be my prisoner from now on. Ling Han turned and left, leaving Empyrean Sundermount with a slender back view. Reading on a phone is more refreshing. Chapter 3043. Ling Han made his move, his figure transforming into a gust of wind that charged toward Chong Yen. Just as the large black dog and the others had said, he couldn't always target Pu. He had to be fair, and he had to be fair. When Ling Han arrived, Chong Yen smirked coldly, and also struck out with his hand. He was naturally unafraid. Old thief, prepare to be surprised. Ling Han suddenly activated all of his 6th-rate symbols. Hong! His power suddenly increased by 3,000 times, and the power of the plane surged, causing his power to instantly reach the level that could crush the peak stage of the 7th step. Peng he struck out with his fist, and Chong Yan's hand instantly became crooked. It couldn't block this punch at all, and it landed on his face with unstoppable force. Chong Yan was immediately sent flying like a kite with a broken string. What? The 3 great paragons, Big Dipper, Banyu, and Black Feather were all shocked. They didn't think that Ling Han's battle prowess had actually reached such a height. This was too terrifying. Chong Yan was actually at a disadvantage in terms of power, and it wasn't just by a little bit. Only Celestial Venerable Puyu had already expected this, and actually felt a sense of schadenfreude in his heart. Finally, he wasn't the only one who was unlucky. However, after being stunned for a moment, the Celestial Venerable Big Dipper and the others hurriedly rushed forward. They couldn't just watch as Ling Han bullied Chong Yan, right? But so what if the 4 of them attacked together? Ling Han's current power was completely overwhelming. Even if the 5 great paragons joined forces, they wouldn't be a match for him. Pung pung pung, Chong Yan instantly became a sandbag. Ling Han's rising dragon fist sent Chong Yan flying into the air. Then with a kick, Chong Yan was sent flying downwards. Chong Yan roared loudly. He was a 7th step paragon, and now he was being beaten up in front of others. How could he endure this? Don't feel bad. You're not the first, Ling Han said with a smile. Pung, he sent out another kick, and it landed between Chong Yan's legs. The force of this kick was so great that it instantly caused Chong Yan to disappear. Thankfully, the physique of a 7th step paragon wasn't bad. Otherwise, his balls would definitely be completely shattered by now. Even so, Big Dipper and the other Empyreans couldn't help but clamp their legs together, feeling a pain in the ass. Empyrean Sundermount could empathize with them. This wasn't the first time he had been kicked in the balls. Next, Ling Han's gaze swept across the faces of Big Dipper, Black Feather, and Half Moon. Why can't you see through you? The Big Dipper trio immediately recalled what Ling Han had said, and their hearts trembled involuntarily. Could Poyu be the first victim? They couldn't help but look at Poyu sympathetically. Previously, they had personally witnessed Chong Yin being trampled upon. His appearance was truly tragic. Poyu couldn't help but blush. Why are you looking at me? Ling Han laughed heartily and charged at 7-star. You! Now he was too strong. Even a peak 7-step expert could not stop him. Of course, Big Dipper was unwilling to be humiliated. He activated all the first-class symbols and 8 planes. As expected, Big Dipper also controlled more planes. Ling Han was certain that they had used some sort of method to divide up the plane within Feng Wuting's body. But what of it? Bang! With just one strike, Big Dipper was sent flying. Even Black Feather and the other 2 Supremes' help was useless. At this time, Chong Yin had already charged back. Damn Junior! His hair flew into the sky. He was furious to the extreme. Ling Han sneered and said, "You're already so old. It's indeed time for you to die. As for me, you don't have to worry about me. You won't live to see that day." Bang bang bang. Even under the combined attacks of 5 Supremes, he still fiercely pressed forward and continued to beat up Big Dipper. After Heavenly Venerable Big Dipper, it was Heavenly Venerable Black Feather, and then Heavenly Venerable Half Moon. Ling Han was very fair. He beat up every Heavenly Venerable. He was truly fair, and did not favor one over the other. He only had 2 hours of explosive power. Otherwise, even beating up each Heavenly Venerable for 3 days and 3 nights would not be enough to vent his anger. Of course, he did not beat up Poyu again. He had already beaten him up 8 times. It was enough. Old thieves, the next time we meet, it won't be so simple. Ling Han was very satisfied. This breath of resentment had been completely vented. It was as if he had obtained some kind of release and relief. His spirit had risen to a different level. He believed that after this seclusion, he would definitely be able to break through to the 6th step. He tore open the void and left without hesitation. Little thief, don't think of leaving. The 5 Supremes hurriedly chased after him. However, Ling Han still had a trace of power left. With a punch, he easily forced them back and left calmly. They could only watch helplessly as Ling Han tore through the void and left. The 5 Supreme Beings could only watch on helplessly. Without the planar coordinates, it was impossible for them to leave the void. They could only return the way they came. The 5 Supremes stood still and looked at each other in dismay. They did not speak. After a long time, Heavenly Venerable Half Moon said, "This kid is a great calamity. Strange. According to the information we obtained, Feng Wuting is the son of destiny. Only he can kill Frenzy. But looking at how monstrous this kid is, he seems to have a higher chance of killing Frenzy than Feng Wuting. I originally thought that after Feng Wuting died, our plan would not be able to be realized. However, we unexpectedly obtained some secrets from Feng Wuting, and obtained even more planar energy. This concerns whether or not we can obtain the core of the world when the Yuan world is destroyed. But this kid continues to grow. It is extremely likely that we will really be suppressed by that kid." The 5 Supremes all fell silent. So what? Could they come up with any countermeasures? We can only quickly strengthen the plane we obtained. At that time, we can immediately cause the Yuan world to be destroyed, snatch the core, and start a new legend for us. The 5 Supremes all nodded. However, after a while, they only heard Heavenly Venerable Blackfeather say, "But is the information we obtained regarding the core of the world really correct? With the appearance of extinction, this Venerable keeps having a feeling that he has fallen into some kind of scheme. We are undying and indestructible. Who can scheme against us?" Chong Yin said arrogantly. The other 4 also shook their heads slowly. Now that 33 layers had been torn down, it meant that if he was still at step 5, this blow would at least be able to seriously injure him, and it wouldn't be strange for him to be directly killed. Fortunately, Ling Han nodded in his heart. Fortunately, he didn't let his strength get to his head and run here when he was at step 5. Now, he was not afraid of these monsters. With a thought, the defensive layer that had been blasted away was restored, and it was perfect. Kill. He rushed back, and as he waved his fists, a terrifying battle power boiled. Bang bang bang. 3 7-step fusion monsters exploded together, turning into a doomsday-like energy storm that sent Ling Han flying again. Powerful. Ling Han was speechless. 3 monsters exploded together, and more than 63 layers of his defense had been cut down. How could it be so powerful? He thought about it in his mind, and immediately understood. There were many exploding monsters among these fusion monsters, and each one had fused with at least 10 of these monsters. Naturally, this power was terrifying. Around him, there were still Step 6 monsters fusing, but the number of exploding monsters was very small. This was very normal. Even if it was frenzy, it should be extremely difficult to create a monster with the power of Step 7. Even if it could only explode once, it still broke some kind of limit. So how could it be produced on a large scale? However, Ling Han had no intention of continuing the battle. It was useless no matter how many of these monsters were destroyed. At most, it would only temporarily relieve the pressure on this battlefield. Not long after, the frenzy army would regain its scale, and the battle would resume again. Then before leaving, he would destroy to his heart's content. Ling Han charged out, trying his best to avoid the 7-step monsters. If he really could not avoid them, then he could only attack one. That way, even if he was hit by the shockwave of the explosion, it would not be able to tear through his defense. Without a true undying body, he had to worry about it. Ling Han sighed. His power was clearly much higher than Chong Yen and the others, but he had to be extremely careful when fighting these monsters. Unlike Chong Yen and the others, who did not need to worry about their own safety at all. Bang bang bang. The caves here were destroyed one by one. Ling Han's focus was to destroy the plants. They seemed to be mother trees that could continuously produce monsters. If he destroyed them, he should be able to greatly slow down the pace of Frenzy's invasion. As expected, after he focused his attacks on the plants, Frenzy became obviously angry. Previously, it had not attacked Ling Han. It seemed that it had been restrained by Lin Luo and the others, or perhaps for some other reason. But now, it waved a tentacle and attacked Ling Han. Bang! Ling Han did not cower. He chose to take it head-on. He wanted to know how terrifying a blow from Frenzy was. According to his calculations, the passage between the 2 worlds should be here. But there were actually 2 of them. One of them had to be fake, forged by Frenzy. If he walked into it, he might be unknowingly led into the interior of Frenzy. Which one was it? He would know after walking for a while. Anyway, the spatial passage was only so long. After walking for a while, he should reach the Xuanma plain. Then if he could not reach the end of the passage, he would immediately turn back. He chose the passage on the right. He leapt into the passage. In just 2 or 3 steps, a familiar sky appeared in front of him, and a familiar power rushed towards him. This was an aura that belonged to the Xuanma plain. If these 4 wanted to reach the 7th step as soon as possible, they might have to hope that the destruction of the Xuanma plain would contribute another plane core. Ling Han did not ask any more questions. He left the extraterritorial battlefield and prepared to walk around the various planes to see if there were any new harvests. As long as the plane in his body grew, he would truly have the qualifications to fight against Frenzy. Even if he was still not a match for her, at least he could guarantee that he would not die or be injured. Ling Han first recuperated from his injuries. Fortunately, it did not hurt his bones, so he quickly recovered. He set off and went back to meet with everyone before beginning his journey across plains. After traveling through plains and arriving at a low-level plain, Ling Han received a piece of news that made him frown. 300,000 years ago, there had indeed been a person who met Ling Han's requirements. However, after just 70,000 years, he had suddenly disappeared. No one knew how he had disappeared. It was as if he had never existed. Ling Han did not believe that it must have been some powerhouse who had taken him away. However, there was a first step heavenly venerable guarding this place. For him to not be able to detect him at all, the other party's cultivation had to be at least 3rd step. A 3rd step supremacy had appeared in a low-level plane? This was impossible unless the other party had come from another plane. That was worth pondering. Had the other party happened to pass by and discovered that the candidate had outstanding talent in martial art, so he had taken him in as a disciple and left without saying a word? Or had the other party gone after the light spot in the candidate's spiritual sea? If it was the former, then it would be fine. If it was the latter, then there would be a big problem. Ling Han traced back time to 230,000 years ago. He had indeed seen a young man here who had suddenly disappeared. He set the timeline to the day when that young man had disappeared and looked carefully. He saw that the young man was cultivating, but suddenly, he revealed a shocked expression and then disappeared. Ling Han seemed to have seen a big hand grab out, but it was too blurry. He wanted to see it clearly, but there was no way. Too much time had passed, and the person who had made a move was too powerful. He had shrouded heaven's secrets and made time unable to record him. However, even if he had only seen a hand, Ling Han could be sure that this person was extremely powerful. He had to be at least a 5th-level heavenly venerate. Ling Han didn't make a big fuss and went to the next plane. However, the person he was looking for wasn't here. After passing through 937 planes, he finally found another person who met the requirements. After obtaining the information about the light spot in that person's spiritual sea, Ling Han decided not to send this person to the Xuanma plane first.